life depends on our surroundings as nature supplies our daily necessities. But as you can observe, there is a change in our environment, and these are damaging and harmful. Today, we will tackle about the global environmental crisis, which is a dramatic, unexpected, and irreversible worsening of the environment leading to significant welfare losses. First, we will tackle the multiple forms of destruction leading to a possible collapse of the planetary ecosystem that supports life through global warming and other massive disruptions. The first manifestation is the destruction of forests. Most of the causes are human activities like agricultural expansion, cattle breeding, timber extraction, mining, oil extraction, dam construction, and infrastructure development. According to Greenpeace organization, when we destroy forests, we add to climate change because forests trap carbon and help stabilize the world's climate. When forests are trashed, the carbon trapped in trees, the roots, and the soil is released into the atmosphere. That is why deforestation accounts for up to 20% of all carbon emissions. And destruction of forests may also lead to another problem like soil erosion, which is the displacement of the upper layer of soil. Another cause of soil erosion is the construction of infrastructure and recreational activities. Setting up buildings and roads also have their share of responsibility when it comes to soil erosion, as they don't allow the normal circulation of water. In relation to this is also the desertification, whereby fertile areas become increasingly arid, in which biological productivity is lost due to the natural processes or induced by human activities. Another manifestation is the burning of fossil fuels. When fossil fuels are burned, they release nitrogen oxides into the atmosphere, which contribute to the formation of smog and acid rain. Major sources of nitrogen oxide emissions include cars and trucks. Carbon emissions trap heat into the atmosphere and lead to climate change. These are only a few of the manifestations of global environmental crisis. Some of them are also harming of lakes and their ecosystems by acid rains, purification of nuclear waste hazards and massive amounts of other toxic waste, worldwide shrinking of freshwater supply through pollution and diminishing aquifers, and lastly, massive extinction of species worldwide connected with the above factors.
Good day, Mr. Roldan Ardines. I am Deck Cadet Ardines Jairah. Pollution, global warming, desertification, and ozone depletion are the major reason for the environmental issues or crisis in the world. Anthropogenic climate change due to pollution of the atmosphere by greenhouse gases and other contaminants is one of the major global environmental issues. It occurs largely as a result of combustion of fossil fuels, emissions from agriculture and pastoralisms, and land use changes that accompany and destruction, clearance, and burning of forests. Climate change already has observable ecological and social effects, and its projected impacts could potentially result in profound changes in global mean surface temperature, sea level, ocean circulation, precipitation patterns, climatic zones, species distributions, and ecosystem functions. Moreover, because of the humans' common activities, it can slowly turn the environment into something that is very unpleasant for the people, the animals, and most especially the environment. Global warming, on the other hand, looms large over humanity. According to the EPA, worldwide greenhouse gas emissions attributed to human activities increased 26% from 1990 to 2005. Though this warming trend has been going on for a long time, its pace has significantly increased in the last 100 years due to the burning of fossil fuels. As the human population has increased, so has the volume of fossil fuels burned. Global warming doesn't just impact nature. Our daily life is affected too. Food prices are rising as climate change makes it trickier to maintain the specific conditions crops need to thrive. Fresh water is becoming scarcer in some regions. Rising ocean levels will cover some of the coastline used for recreation and human habitation. Lastly, more wildfires are breaking out as droughts become increasingly common. Furthermore, desertification refers to the persistent degradation of dry land ecosystems by climatic variations and human activities. It occurs on all continents except Antarctica and affects the livelihoods of millions of people, including a large proportion of the poor in dry lands. Climatic variations and human activities are the two main causes of desertification. Climatic variations may include climate change, drought, and moisture loss on a global level. For the human activities, this may include overgrazing, deforestation, and removal of the natural vegetation covered by taking too much fuel wood. Agricultural activities in the vulnerable ecosystems of arid and semi-arid areas, which are thus strained beyond their capacity. These activities are triggered by population growth, the impact of the market economy, and poverty. Lastly is the ozone layer depletion. It is the gradual thinning of the Earth's ozone layer in the upper atmosphere caused due to the release of chemical compounds containing gaseous bromine or chlorine from industries or other human activities. We need to take care of the ozone layer because as it becomes thinner, it allows more UV radiation to reach the Earth's surface. And we will not like that. The UV radiation can badly affect our health, including skin damage, skin cancers and premature aging, eye damage including cataracts, and suppression of the immune system. Therefore, we need to take care of the environment to have a better place to live in.
Good day everyone, I'm Deck Cadet Mangolari and I'm here to continue what Deck Cadet Ardines and Gencono reported. So for my part, I'm going to tackle the policies and programs of governments around the world that address the environmental crisis. But before we proceed, let us know what is environmental crisis. So it is a dramatic, unexpected, and irreversible worsening of the environment, leading to significant welfare losses. So, life on Earth is in danger. Species are going extinct at alarming rates. Rainforests and coral reefs are disappearing. Pollution is haunting the entire planet, and global temperatures are rising at unprecedented levels. The 21st century will be a disaster for the environment, and we are to blame for this. Practically all environmental problems are caused by human activity. The global community must become more sustainable, otherwise we will devastate our environment and ultimately ourselves. So what are the policies and programs? So the United Nations Environment Program has 6 areas of concentration. So the first one is the Climate Change UNEP. So its purpose is to strengthen the ability of countries to integrate climate change responses by providing leadership in adaptation, mitigation, technology, and finance. UNEP is focusing on the facilitating the transition to low-carbon societies, improving and understanding of climate science, facilitating the development of the renewable energy, and raising public awareness. So the next one is the post-conflict and Disaster Management Unit. So it conducts environmental assessments in crisis-affected countries and provides guidance for implementing legislative and institutional frameworks for improved environmental management. Activities undertaken by UNEP's Post-Conflict and Disaster Management Branch include post-conflict environmental assessment. So next on the list is the ecosystem management. So it facilitates management and restoration of ecosystem in a manner of consistent with sustainable development and promotes use of ecosystem services. Examples include the Global Program of Action for the protection of the marine environment from land-based activities. So next on the list is the Environmental Governance Unit. So it supports government in establishing, implementing, and strengthening the necessary process, institution, laws, policies, and programs to achieve sustainable development at the country, regional, and global levels, and mainstreaming environment in development planning. So next on the list is the Harmful Substances Unit. So it strives to minimize the impact of harmful substances and hazardous waste on the environment and human beings. So UNEP has launched negotiations for a global agreement on mercury and implements projects on mercury and a strategic approach to international chemicals management to reduce risk to human health and the environment. So next on the list is the Resource Efficiency, Sustainable Consumption, and Production Unit. So it focuses on regional and global efforts to ensure natural resources are produced, processed, and consumed in a more environmentally friendly way. For example, the Marrakesh process is a global strategy to support the elaboration for a 10-year framework of programs on sustainable consumption and production. So that's all for my report.
Good day, sir. So this is the cadet Adriane Caballero. So I'm going to report what is the relationship of population growth to environmental issues. So population is growing rapidly for outspacing the ability of our planet to support it. The given current practices, overpopulation is associated with negative environmental and economic outcomes. So, ranging from the impacts of overfarming, deforestation, and water pollution to eutrophication and global warming. So, many people worry that the unchecked population growth will eventually cause environmental issues. So, the environment will be affected due to many population that would affect or produce pollutions. This is an understandable fear, and a quick look at the circumstantial evidence certainly shows that as our population has increased, so the environmental issues would harm the earth because of the overpopulation. So due to people that doesn't have a family planning, it would affect the environment. Because of the overpopulation, there are pollutions that will occur, especially the garbage pollution, water pollution, and air pollution. And by that, those pollution will affect the earth. That will trigger the ozone layers. So it is important for us to know about family planning and the growth of the population. So we should always check the population if it increases or decreases, because it could help us to avoid those harmful effects that would affect the earth, wherein we are the one who will using it. So the pollution that may affect would harmful every human health. So there's would be another problem if there will be a bacteria that would trigger or harm the people. So it is always good to have a family planning, so it would be lesser the production of food and clothes. So if there is a overpopulation, so the produce of food and clothes would be the it would be important, because nowadays some people doesn't have a good job that would provide their family with foods. So in order for us to lessen the production of foods, so family planning is the best way to prevent it. So the overpopulation of growth and the relationship between the environmental issues has a big impact to the world. So the earth may be affected by the overpopulated countries. Just like here in the Philippines, there are 7 billion people, and in order to survive, should now have an action to prevent this overpopulation. Thank you, sir.
My report is, what is the relationship of population growth to food security? So according to Offenberg, Malthus and Darwin understood that in the absence of limitations of resources, such as space and food, population will exponentially grow. If resources are limited, the growth rate will begin to decline as the population reaches its maximum that the environment can support. Production depends on croplands and water supply, which are under strain as human population increase. Pressure on limited land resources driven in part by population growth can mean expansion of vital forest resources or exploitation of arable land. So our resources are suffering because of this overpopulation. There will be more forests that will be destroyed if this continues, and the water supply might be short for all the people because the population keeps growing and growing every year, and our resources are reducing and reducing every year. Growing population means more mouths to feed. The expanding global population is getting healthier, and richer people tend to eat more and demand food that is resource intensive to produce, particularly meat and dairy. So this will be the real problem if this overpopulation will affect our food security, because the rich people will have no problem demanding foods to them, not like poor people where they can't afford to demand things or will have enough food to feed their family, especially if they have a big family. This will be the real problem. That is all for my report. Thank you.
Good day, sir. My name is Deputy Tampos, and I'm going to report about what is the relationship of population growth to sustainability. So, an increasing population challenges our ability both to live sustainably as a species and mitigated human-driven climate change. Given the challenges aggravated by population growth, it is logical to assume that reducing the population could population size could help address these environmental concerns. Population patterns change over long time scales. So, due to what is called demographic momentum. The findings of the study indicate that the existing demographic momentum of a still growing population will outweigh any short-term attempts at managing population size. Population growth in particular places increasing pressures on the planet's resources, water, forest, land, and the Earth's atmosphere, contributing to climate change and challenging environmental sustainability. So, when population growth, mutaas ang population, the planet's resources mo decrease gina siya kay mas madaghan man og mo gamit siya ba. Ingana. So, dapat mo plant ta og mga trees or other resources magbuhat ta ana para mo kuan daghang makagamit or whatsoever. Next is, if sustainable population growth is defined as the rate at which the number of inhabitants of a given area can increase without overburdening the area's economic, social, and natural resources, by Vhal 2010. So, in a demographic sense, a population might be defined as sustainable if it does not die out. This might be described as a feasible path in that the population can continue indefinitely. A feasible path would rule out extremely low fertility rates. So, many of the findings highlight the strength of this demographic momentum. For example, the study found that if every unplanned pregnancy were avoided worldwide due to reproductive education, family planning, and cultural shifts, population would peak at 8.39 billion in 2050 and then fall to 7.3 billion by 2100. So, maano siya, example kung atong i-control ang pregnancy, unplanned pregnancy, mas daghan ta og mas molest ato ang population, pero naman siya na i-effects molest ang population. That's all, sir. Thank you.
I am Cadet Baoy Nino R. What is the relationship of population growth to development? Population growth can have a positive and negative impact towards development. On the positive side, population growth and economic growth and development are both correlated. The higher the rate of the population, the economic growth and the development also increases. In addition, population growth increases more employable people for the economy. The industry hires numerous employees due to manpower demands. Moreover, economic growth and development provides greater opportunities and advancements for the society. In contrast, population growth can hinder environmental development such as increased water and air pollution. Demands for resources like water, land, trees, and energy also increases, making it less for the people to consume. Food supply is also affected due to number of consumers in the market, resulting to higher prices of goods. Furthermore, population growth can increase waste materials, which leads to disasters such as flooding, landslides due to cutting down trees, and other natural or man-made disasters. Aside from environmental hindrances, poverty crisis will still be evident due to the rapid growth of population. As a result, there will be inequality among individuals on privileges of such education, healthcare, justice system, and other aspects in the community. Generally, this indicates that population growth can either be too good or too bad for development. That would be all for my report in the relation of population growth and development.
Good day, I am Cadet Lacea, and I am going to report and answer the question, what is the relationship of population growth to the future of globalization? So enjoy watching. Population growth. Population growth is defined as one of the driving forces behind environmental problems because the growing population demands more and more non-renewable resources for its own application. The world population increased from 1 billion in 1800s to 7.7 billion today. The world population growth rate declined from 2.2% per year 50 years ago to 1.05% per year. Other relevant research about world population growth. Presently, every year, the world's human population grows by approximately 80 million. However, that population growth is not distributed evenly across all countries. Most population growth comes from developing countries, where birth rates remain high. Meanwhile, about half the world lives in nations with sub-replacement fertility. In some of these countries, the population has actually begun to shrink. Example of this is Russia. All of the nations of East Asia, with exceptions of Mongolia, the Philippines, and Laos, have fertility rates below replacement level. Russia and Eastern Europe are dramatically below replacement fertility. Western Europe is also below replacement. In the Middle East, Iran, Tunisia, Algeria, Turkey, and Lebanon are below replacement. Some countries still have growing population due to high rates of immigration, but native fertility rates below replacement. Example of this is Canada, Australia, and New Zealand are similar to Western Europe, while United States is just barely below replacement, which about 2.0 births per woman. So now, let's talk about the population growth formula. So, the population growth formula is population growth equals birth rates minus death rates. So, the factors for this are fertility, mortality, which is rationality, healthcare, birth control, food availability, relationships, and resource availability. So, it encompasses the study of the size, structure, and distribution of these populations, and spatial and or temporal changes in them in response to birth, migration, aging, and death. Human population growth depends on the rate of natural increase or the fertility rate minus the mortality rate and net migration. So about this equation, it shows population change depends on three variables. First, the natural increase changes seen in birth rates. Second, the natural decrease changes seen in death rates. And third, the changes seen in migration. Changes in population size can be predicted based on changes in fertility, mortality, and migration rates. Natural increase refers to the increase in population not due to migration, and it can be calculated with fertility rate and the mortality rate. Net migration is the mathematical difference between those migrating into a country and those migrating out of the country. So now let's talk about how rapid is the population growth in the world. So in 1650, the human population counted only 0.5 billion heads. By 1900s, the population had increased to 1.6 billion heads and was growing increasingly more rapidly to 3.3 billion in 1965. We can see at the figure at the left side. So it shows that it is increasing in the population in the world. So population growth is difficult to predict because unforeseen events can alter birth rates, death rates, migration, or the resource limits on population growth. So now, I'm going to answer the question, what is the relationship of population growth to the future of globalization? Population growth serves as a propulsion to the globalization and international migration. The future of globalization will depend on the amount of population growth because population growth brings the effect of the distribution of the labor and capital. The differences of the rate or number of population growth will bring a large impact to the future of globalization because if there are large differences between each country's supply of labor and capital, it will have an important influence on trade, foreign investment, and international migration. Countries with less number of population growth will tend to cooperate to other countries with much number of these economic resources to exchange for the labor, which is migration, or capital, which is foreign investment. To the future of globalization, for the developing countries, working age population will continue to expand for the several decades. Developing regions should able to increase their share of global manufacturing production. Lower dependency ratios in these countries will provide an opportunity for export, expansion, and rapid economic growth. For the conclusion of this topic, population growth has a major impact to the future of globalization because they are interconnected and they depend on each other. So, thank you for watching and God bless.